Moana Robinson here from Take a Moment, having a chat or taking a moment with Heidi Jennings, who lives in New Zealand, my home country. And I'm looking forward to actually meeting Heidi in person one day. Thank you for taking a moment with me, Heidi.
Thank you so much, Mo. It's so good to be here.
That's fantastic that you could spare the time for me today, because you're 3 hours ahead of me. That's quite early for me. You're sort of in the middle of your morning.
Yes, it's 10 a.m. here, so yes, it will be early for you.
Yeah. Heidi has recently written a book called From Living Hell to Living Well. Heidi, how did you start on your health journey?
Right, so my health journey started probably quite a number of years ago, actually. I was in my mid-30s at the time, and I was getting some pretty chronic eczema. I had eczema my whole life, and I'd, managed it through steroid medication and all that sort of thing. And it got to the point where it was just getting worse and worse after I'd had my second baby. And so I started working with a naturopath, and excuse me, we were able to identify a lot of food and environmental allergens that I was sensitive to. And from that point, I was able to take a lot of those foods out of my diet, and my eczema started to heal. And then things went along really nicely for a few years. And then we moved out to a rural environment. We built a house out there about 15 minutes out of the city. And within about 12 to 18 months, I was very, very sick. I developed a big rash all over my chest and my neck, and it went all up into my face. And I just knew that it wasn't anything to do with my diet, because I'd already been down that track, and I knew how to control my eczema through my diet. And I just had a suspicion that there was something in the environment. And there was a lot of backwards and forwards, trying to identify what was going on. And eventually we discovered that I had toxic heavy metal poisoning, because the land opposite us was contaminated with arsenic. And so I was very unwell. I had this big rash. I had vertigo to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. I had eye floaters. I was just really sick. And so we made the decision to leave that environment and move back into the city. Yep. And against my better judgment, I decided to use some steroid cream to help with the eczema, because it was really itchy and annoying. And what I didn't realize was that because I'd used steroid cream over my lifetime sparingly, but over a period of years, my skin became addicted to that cream very, very quickly. And so when I came off the cream, which was after about 9 or 10 weeks, I went through a pretty horrific withdrawal, which took a good 2 to 3 years to get through. And that was the most difficult time of my life, because the withdrawal symptoms were horrific. I looked like I'd been burnt, and I basically didn't leave the house for a very long time. And through that process, conventional medicine, they didn't recognize steroid withdrawal as a thing. They said to me, no, it's just your eczema getting worse. Here's some stronger steroids. And now I knew, I've lived with eczema all my life, and I know the difference between eczema and steroid withdrawal. So I felt very alone, because I knew that no one could help me. And so simultaneously, my husband is a personal trainer, a background in personal trainer. And around that time, he was rebranding himself as a holistic health coach, because he realized that his skill set was so much broader than personal training. And we took it upon ourselves to find a way to get me better, because no one else could help me. And so we developed a program, a holistic healing program, which we now use with our clients, with a 95% success rate, that takes into account healing the body from the inside out. So it's got nothing to do with medication. It's got nothing to do with masking symptoms. It's about addressing what's going on in the body through 5 functional pillars of health, which is what we base our program around. And so through my illness, I turned to a plant-based diet, because I knew from my previous experience with my eczema that diet was so important. So I went to a plant-based diet, did heaps of research, and thought, yep, this is it for me. And I started to heal. My body started to heal slowly. And then I decided that I needed to study this in more depth. So I studied plant-based nutrition through Cornell University in the States. And then when I was at a point where I was functioning again physically and mentally, I joined Steve in our family business. And so now we are both holistic health coaches. I specialize in plant-based nutrition, and we absolutely love it.
Yeah. That's an amazing story. And what you've done is you've empowered yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. A big part of our coaching philosophy is identifying the reason that you have to go through something. And it's never obvious at the time.
Mm.
You're always in that situation. You're going, why me? Why is this happening to me? And it's not until later that you can look back and go, that's why I had to go through that, because now I'm in a position where I can do this. Or in my case, I had to go through that because it gave me the tools and the experience and the knowledge to now help other people who maybe, where I was and feel like they're stuck. And I wish that I'd had someone offering something like what we offer back then.
Yeah.
But we had to figure it out for ourselves.
And look at you now, you're the picture of health. You've got glowing skin, you're beautiful, you look so healthy.
You go to rock bottom and your health is threatened, that's when you really start to appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now I'm very careful to look after myself, and not, things happen, life gets busy, you go off track every now and then, but the important thing is having the tools and the knowledge to bring you back on track.
Yeah, that's right. And that way you regain control instead of going through something and something else controlling you.
Exactly.
You've got two children?
Yes, got two kids.
Yeah, two kids. And do they have the same diet that you do, the plant-based diet?
They are probably 80%.
Yep.
So I'd say that I'm 95% plant-based. So I make the distinction between plant-based and vegan.
Yep.
I don't call myself a vegan because I don't want to put myself into that box.
Mm-hmm.
Plant-based gives me a little bit more wriggle room, and I like having wriggle room. So for example, if my kids have got an ice cream and they offer me a taste, I'm probably going to take it.
Yeah. Good
or
idea.
if they're having a burger and they say, Mum, do you want a bite? I'll go, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if I called myself a vegan,
yeah,
that's very difficult to, you end up just boxing yourself in. So I would say I'm 95% plant-based, and my husband and kids are probably 80%.
Yeah.
So I do the best that I can at home, and then when they go to friends' places or grandparents, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get too tied up in knots about it, because that's a really hard way to live.
I think you've got a great attitude, and that will help. That helps your health as well as stress factors and things like that, doesn't it? So that sense of curiosity to find out what you can do to empower yourself. And also I love that idea of not putting yourself into a box. And
I think when you call yourself a vegan, you've got people looking over your shoulder going, well, why are you wearing leather shoes? And you shouldn't be having that. That's just not how I operate. But something that one of our coaching philosophies is the 80-20 rule. So, 80% of the time, make really good decisions and look after yourself the best way that you can. And then 20% of the time, just chill out and do whatever the hell you want. Go and have your glass of wine, go and have your dessert.
Yeah.
And it's a really sustainable way to live.
Mm. And whereabouts are you based in New Zealand?
I'm in Tauranga, which is in the Bay of Plenty, about 2.5 hours south from Auckland by car.
Yep.
Beautiful place in the world, beautiful beach. Feel pretty lucky to live here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. We used to live in Papamoa. I think I've told you that before, that we used to live in Papamoa, and it was very close to the beach as well. I love being near the beach. And so what would you say to people who want to change their way of living if they're suffering from health problems? Would you advise them to go to a naturopath or someone like yourself, to read your book, obviously,
Yeah.
Is it a good idea to make changes slowly, or just to think, okay, I'm just going to change my whole life and make a hard and fast drastic change?
That's a really good question. I think it depends on how ill you are.
Yep.
If you're chronically unwell, then you probably have quite a high motivation to change quite quickly. Yep. And your chances of healing are obviously much higher if you transition quickly. If you're not chronically ill, but you feel like you've just got some tweaks that you need to make, or you know that there's some issues going on that you need to address, you can do that gradually. The beauty of what we do is that we provide a program over a 6-week period, which is a really great amount of time for people to notice some really significant changes. So we focus on those 5 functional pillars, which is nutrition, exercise, gut health, sleep, and addressing the root cause of stress. And when you start getting those 5 pillars working together, that's when the body starts to heal.
Yeah.
So yes, you can make sustainable changes, but I think gradual changes, but the difficult thing for people is that they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, they might look at their diet and go, oh, well, I shouldn't be eating this, but then at the same time, they're not paying attention to their sleep. Or they've got a lot of background stress going on, and okay, you might be doing lots of exercise and eating really well, but if you've got background stress, you probably shouldn't be doing that much exercise because your body's already, under stress. It doesn't need more.
Yeah.
So that's where I think from a holistic point of view, it's really important to encompass the whole body. Whereas if you go to a naturopath or like a nutritionist or something, they tend to focus more on sort of 1 or 2 areas, nutrition and maybe gut health. But then if you're not addressing your sleep or your stress, then you can't sort of get a whole holistic approach.
If you've been chronically ill for a long time, like you say, the motivation is going to be pretty high, and you really want to make that change. Whereas otherwise, it's just like a slight interest. You think, oh, maybe I should be a bit healthier, and you're not going to have that same sort of motivation. So really, what would be a really good way to start, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. So our book is kind of like a very broad picture of what we do. And when I was writing the book, I really wanted to provide as much value as I could, so that by the end, people can start to make those changes on their own if they want to. Yeah. They've got all the information at their fingertips. A big part of our success, our clients' success, is when they have someone to walk next to them on that journey, to guide them and to keep them accountable. That's a big part, is accountability and keeping you on the sort of the straight and narrow, and just making sure that things are moving along as they should be. Because sometimes when we do things on our own, there's so many distractions in life that it's easy to go off track.
Yeah, and it's easy to say that the most important person to be accountable to is yourself, but we quite often don't do that. We sort of are more accountable to someone else. You're more likely to have success if you're accountable to someone else. That's
absolutely.
And even coaching.
Yeah, and I think everybody's threshold for making change differs. So for some people, it might be, I'm holding on to a few extra kilos and I feel like rubbish. That might be enough for them to go, okay, I'm going to take charge and change. For other people, it's a heart attack.
Yes.
And then they go, oh my God, okay, now I need to make some changes. So each individual's threshold for change is going to differ significantly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what's the one piece of advice that you would give to someone who maybe hasn't got any major health problems, but the one piece of advice that you would give people to make a difference today, starting from today? Tricky question.
I would say get your sleep sorted. Because when you don't sleep properly, everything else starts to fall apart.
Yep.
So when you start to sleep properly and you wake up feeling refreshed in the morning, then you've got the capacity to plan your meals, go for a walk, address what's going on in the background with your husband or your kids or your elderly parents or whatever it is. If you're trying to do all those things on a low quality of sleep, it's going to be really, really tough. I think sleep, and what we've realized through our business, is that sleep is one of the most undercoached and understated cornerstones of health.
Yeah.
So if you go to your nutritionist or your personal trainer or your naturopath or your doctor, it's very unlikely they're going to ask you about your sleep. And a lot of people come to us and we say to them, what's your sleep like? And they go, oh, it's pretty good. I go to bed at 10 and I get up at 6 and I have 8 hours. I might wake up a few times in the night. And then we say to them, are you waking up feeling refreshed in the morning? 9 out of 10 times the answer is no.
Yeah.
Most of the time they just want to stay in bed. They're not rearing to go and they're not ready to jump out of bed, or they need caffeine to get them going.
Yeah.
So if you're not feeling refreshed in the morning, that's a sign that you're not sleeping properly. And if you're not feeling refreshed, how do you expect to stay on top of everything else that life throws at us?
Yeah, it's like putting that poor quality fuel, like food and sleep, poor quality fuel in your car, or not putting fuel in your car and expecting it to go. And it is like a loop, isn't it? If you're stressed, that stops you from sleeping.
That's why it's so important to address those 5 pillars together.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all feed into each other, and it becomes like a snowball effect. So you things just get, when you sleep right, your liver's able to do its job, and when your liver's able to do its job, it's able to process out all the toxins, and then you're able to absorb your food better, and then it's snowballs. So
definitely it all relates, all the health aspects relate to each other. And if people want to do your course, is that online?
Yes, we can do it purely online. The beauty of Zoom. So we work with a lot of people purely online from around the world. It's super, super easy, and we obviously give them all the tools and all the strategies, and then we catch up weekly to just make sure that everything's going well. And usually by the end of 6 weeks, we've got a completely different person on the other side of the screen, which is pretty awesome.
They can contact you through your website, send you an email, or do they register for the course online?
Yeah, so they can just go to our website, and there's pretty much on every page of our website, there's a link to book in for a free consultation. Yep. So we just do free 30-minute consultations, and the very first thing we do before we even get that far is we get every person to fill out an adrenal stress quiz. And this is where we really stand apart from a lot of other health practitioners, is that when people fill out this quiz, we get an idea of where they are sitting on the stress spectrum. Yep. And from there, we know exactly how to coach them.
Well, I used to suffer from insomnia a lot. I don't anymore. But I can really appreciate how important sleep is. And I think you've answered that question really well, because also once you start adjusting one aspect of your life, that seems to flow through, and it helps all the other aspects as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are your interests? What do you like doing in your spare time? I know you haven't had much lately because you've been posting out a couple of 100 copies of your book.
Yeah. Something that I've taken up earlier this year is Latin American dance, which I absolutely love.
Yep.
I haven't had much chance to do it lately because we've been in lockdown, and we're not able to, do social dancing as much. Yep. That's been a really interesting thing for me, because I always had, for my whole life, I convinced myself that I couldn't dance. And then I just decided that I was just going to get over myself and prove to myself that I can. Yep. So I'm still a beginner, very much so, but I really enjoy it. I also love to walk. I just love going for walks and putting in my little earbuds and listening to podcasts and audiobooks and music and all that sort of stuff. I find that a really good stress relief tool. But I haven't been doing it as much as I'd like to lately, just because I've been so busy with other stuff. I love to read. I love to write. I feel like writing that's just a big part of who I am, and it always has been, especially as a kid. But it's something that I lost for many, many years as I went into a different direction, and it's just come back now with writing the book. And now I also write for global and domestic publications on the subject of health and wellness, and I absolutely love doing that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm sure everybody who sees this will look forward to hearing a bit more about you or seeing you on your website, and maybe make an appointment to have that 30-minute consultation. I might even take you up on that too.
Yeah, anyone's welcome. Feel free.
No, that'd be great. Thank you so much, Heidi. I've really enjoyed speaking with you today. I feel like it's been a really great start for me for the day.
Yeah, thanks, Mo. Really appreciate it.
Breakfast and taking my doggies for a walk. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully meeting you in person one day.
I hope so. And I was just thinking to myself, as soon as our borders open, I'd really like to pop over and meet you ladies, because you know, I mean, I feel so much part of the group, but I'm the only one over this side of the ditch, and I'd love to come over and meet you all. So hopefully that will happen.
I'm sure it will. So thank you so much, Heidi, for taking a moment.
Thanks, Mo. Really appreciate it. Lovely to talk to you.